Sukihotu, brothers and sisters in the Dharma, a very good morning and happy Chapkome to everyone. We are very fortunate today to be able to have Bhante Ariyadhammika with us, who have compassionately agreed to share with us a Dhamma talk by the title of How to Become a Dhamma-Tiger. For those of you who are not familiar with Ayasma, please allow me to share a brief biography of Bhante Ariyadhammika with you. Bhante Ariyadhammika is an Austrian Buddhist monk who ordained in 2005 in Myanmar with Pa Auk Sayadaw as his preceptor and meditation teacher. He maintained a very simple lifestyle, living out in the open and under trees, dedicating himself to mindfulness of breathing, and later also to many other meditation subjects. Ayasma was also initiated into the meditation techniques of Mogok, Mahasi, Shwe Uming under the guidance of Sayadaw U Tejaniya, as well as Sun Lun. Ayasma went to Thailand in 2010, where he stayed for 3 years at Wat Pananachat, undergoing the traditional training of a Thai forest monk of the Ajahn Chah lineage. Ayasma stayed in Malaysia from 2013 to 2015, studying Pali, Sutanta, and the Vinaya under the guidance of Venerable Agachita Mahathera. From 2015 to 2018, Ayasma stayed in Sri Lanka and returned to Malaysia in January 2018, where he was appointed the Sangha Nayaka of SBS Monk Training Center in Taipei. For a full biography of Ayasma Ariyadhammika, you may visit the website of Sasanaraka Buddhist Sanctuary. And now, brothers and sisters, without further ado, we will pay homage to the Triple Gem, take the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts, and formally invite Ayasma Ariyadhammika to share the Dhamma with us. Please put your palm together and repeat after me. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantam Abhivademi Swagato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sanghang namami. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi Dhammāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi Sanghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi Dutiyampi Dhammāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi Dutiyampi Sanghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi Tatiyampi Dhammāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi Tatiyampi Sanghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi Panatipata Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami Adinadana Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami Kamesu Micacara Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami Musavada Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami Sura Meraya Majapamadatana Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami Imani Panca Sikapadani Silena Sugatim Yanti Silena Boga Sampada Silena Nibutin Yanti Tasma Silam Visodaye. Brothers and sisters, we will now request a Dhamma talk from Bhante Ariyadhammika. Brahma Caloka Dipati Sahampati Katanjalian Diwarangaya Cata Santi Dasahata Parajaka Jatika Dese Dudhamang Anukampi Mang Pajang. The Brahma Sahampati, Lord of the world, with palms joined in reverence, requested a favor. Beings are here with but little dust in their eyes. Pray, teach the Dhamma out of compassion for them.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to SBS Monk Training Center. And thank you, Leonard, also for the kind introduction. And I wish all of you a Happy New Year. Happy Chinese New Year. Well, it's kind of funny. Since 2 weeks, we're wishing each other Happy New Year. It's going on and on. Half of the year is already gone and we're still celebrating New Year. I really like that spirit. That's kind of funny. I was told this year is the year of the tiger, Lahu. And it is said that people born in the year of the tiger are friendly, brave, and competitive, and also charming, and also that they are having good luck and authority. Also, it is said that with courage and great confidence, the tiger people can be good leaders, competent leaders. Oh, very nice qualities. Huh? So what are they? People born in the year of the tiger, according to the Chinese calendar, are meant to be friendly, brave, charming, but also having confidence and be good leaders. So I'm sure we got some people who are born in the year of the tiger also in our audience today. On the other hand, It is also said that people born in the year of the tiger are likely to be irritable, impetuous, overindulging. When it comes to sense pleasures, cannot stop eating, cannot stop drinking. And they love to boast to others. This is also the quality of tiger people. Is it true? I don't know. Well, I would say let us see what is the lifestyle and what are the qualities of real tigers out in nature. And how can we understand these qualities from the perspective of the Dhamma? So instead of being wild and untrained, untamed animals, let us aspire to become Dhamma-Tigers. Do you want to be a Dhamma-Tiger? A Dhamma-Lauhu? Or rather a Dhamma-Laoshu? A Dhamma-Mouse? Or maybe rather a fierce Mulahu? A tiger mom watching after her children. Okay, let's see. I brought along some passages from the tiger entry in Wikipedia. And I will read out a few passages and then we discuss them and see whether we can see some Dhamma qualities there. Wikipedia explains, a tiger is a territorial and generally a solitary but social predator, requiring large contiguous areas of habitat where they roam about, which support its requirements for prey and rearing of its offspring, the tiger cubs, the children. So they need a large area. So the first point that was mentioned here is that they are territorial. They like to have physical boundaries, both to themselves, their own boundary, but they also set boundaries to others. And they're highly protective of their territory, obviously. So even among us humans, even though we are not tigers, boundaries are also sometimes necessary and helpful and important. If we are parents to our children, it is important that children learn boundaries. Even though as Buddhists, we try to be gentle, kind, compassionate, but it does not mean that we always have to give in, that we can never say or voice our opinion. No, sometimes it's really important to set boundaries. For example, if somebody wants us to overstep our own ethical standards, you're encouraged by your friends or people in the workplace, or maybe even your boss to cheat or lie. So it's important that we set boundaries. No, actually, over that boundary, I'm not going. So protecting one's boundary, one's territory, our virtue, this is our boundary, this is our territory. No? And also, like tigers who protect their territory, we might have to make a fence sometimes around our territory, especially if our qualities are weak and still need further development. We might want to protect the mind from influences that lead it in a direction that is not wholesome. And just like the tiger, we might have to chase away intruders. But the worst intruders are not people from outside, or other animals, or family members, or friends, or even enemies. The worst intruders are the enemies that arise from within, the enemies of the mind, the defilements of the mind, the kilesas, the impurities of the mind, like greed, aversion, anger, jealousy, stinginess, avarice. These are the defilements, and these are the true intruders. And when they come into our territory, into the chitta, into the mind, into our heart, we do not tolerate them, just like the tiger. You chase them away, right? Because the purity of the mind is important. So these visiting defilements, these agam dukkha, kilesas, we don't entertain them. It's like sometimes also friends, when they visit our house, okay, we let them stay for a while, but if they keep hanging around and they don't know when it's time to go home, we have to gently invite them to move on. Or in the worst case, for some people, you might even have to chase them out. So likewise, with undesirable mental states, defilements, akusala, chitta, we try to reduce them and shorten the period. We hang out with them. So in this way, there's some similarity between the actions of the tiger and our own actions and attitudes towards our own mind. And speaking about meditators, what is the territory? What's the domain of a meditator? The 4 satipatthanas, the 4 establishments of mindfulness. Body, feelings, mind, and mind objects or Dhamma categories. This is our proper domain where we roam about. And even in daily life, we stay within that domain. We can always come back to the body, feelings. How does the mind react to sensory input? Is it with greed or with aversion, or equanimity, compassion, loving kindness? So we can observe the mind. This is part of Chittanupassana. We can observe the body, then this is body contemplation, Kayanupassana. This is our true domains, our territory. But then it was explained in Wikipedia also, the tigers are solitary. They enjoy their seclusion. And if you read the suttas, you will also notice that the Buddha often highlights the importance of seclusion, especially when it comes to monks. So, living aloof from society, not mixing a lot, and retreating is very conducive to spiritual development. Why? Well, because there are less distractions. You have more time. And I think, as all of us know, social interactions can take a lot of time. Family life, work life. So by retreating and minding one's own business, you win a lot of time that allows for introspection, contemplation, and also meditation. So that's why you find often monks preferring to go into forests, sometimes quite deep into a forest. Well, that's also why laity often we go on meditation retreat for the same reason. So there's value in seclusion. Doesn't have to be all the time, but there are periods where we intensify our practice and go into seclusion. But then it was also said about the tiger that he's a social predator. And the word social is here. Social means he cooperates with others. So other tigers, they join hands when they want to achieve their goals. Usually when they hunt together, they cooperate. And likewise, we humans, also when we want to achieve something, a larger goal, it's often necessary and very useful to cooperate with others, to join hands, to support each other, giving help to family and friends, and being of service. So this is also very important for us humans. And this is true in family life, where the children support the parents support the children, or even the extended family circle, as well as among friends. And even in Buddhist societies, Buddhist groups, we support each other, both with the Dhamma and also other areas. So that's why the Buddha often emphasized the importance of Kalyana Mittas, of a good friend, of a good spiritual friend who supports his companions and shares the Dhamma. So joining hands, cooperation, doing things together helps to achieve important goals. So even the tigers know about that. If there's something big enemy or prey to be hunted down, they will join hands. And then they separate again. So they don't hang out the whole day, the whole week, partying and enjoying themselves. No, they do their task and then they mind their own business. Quite interesting. Then it's also mentioned that tigers require a large, contiguous areas of habitat to support their requirements for prey, to hunt, and rearing of their offspring. So they require lots of resources, not just for themselves, but especially to provide for their children. So maybe the mother or father tiger for himself, would also need to hunt from time to time. But if he has 5 tiger cubs, then of course it's very important also to provide for them. So likewise, among us humans, we have a family who depends on us. We take care of our children, or even grandchildren. We're providing for their education, support them in their private endeavors. Some are interested in sports. We try to support. Or music, art, whatever it is. And some of these activities, if you're a parent, you know, some of these activities that your children might get into can be quite costly. So you for yourself might not need a lot of money. You can live very simply. But then, since we also have children, you might feel pressure and also the need to provide for more so that your children can flourish and develop and follow also their passions to some degree and develop their talents. So just like the tiger has to go hunting more regularly, likewise we do need to go out, have a stable occupation, and provide for ourselves and also our family oftentimes. So monks ourselves also, we require a large habitat. And monks also often prefer to live in forests, just like the tigers, which supports the practice of the Dhamma, seclusion, nature, and the mind settles, calms down, and unifies much more easily. And even though there are also monks living in cities and towns, but the lifestyle of a city monk is typically quite different from a forest monk. And city monks often also will have functions to fulfill towards the society there, like wedding, funerals, a little bit priestly functions. And often the forest monks are not really into that. So they prefer to retreat more and dedicate more of their time towards meditation. There are exceptions, of course, but just roughly outlining the differences between city monks, temple monks, and forest monks. And actually, we should not be overly judgmental, because both categories or both lifestyles have important roles to fulfill in the larger Buddhist society. So the city monks help for the laity to connect with the Dhamma. They often share the Dhamma. They will be part of these social gatherings, family events, and in this way regularly hear and encounter the monks and have some contact with the Dhamma at important stages of their lives. But we also need the forest monks who cultivate the Dhamma to a very high degree, hopefully, and put it into practice, and are living as living models of the pinnacle of achievements, of striving for the goal, for Nibbana. So that's a similarity among them, but also differences. And then just like the monks like to live in the forest, many of them, in the Dhamma also we rely on our teachers and are dependent on them, just like the tiger cub depends on its mother and on its parents. We also depend on our Dhamma teachers who share the Dhamma with us, help us, guide us along, so that we can develop. How long does it take for a tiger cub to grow up? 2 years. How many of your children have grown up within 2 years? Not possible, huh? Many years go by where we have to take care for each other and raise them up. So, in this sense, there's a small difference in the terms of commitment that it takes, but then also many more years will follow where they can stand on their own feet, and then later maybe also support the parents when the parents become old and depend on their children. At least traditionally, that's how it used to be in Buddhist societies or even non-Buddhist societies around the world. Nowadays, maybe the state or government takes over some of these functions, depending on the country, where there might be a social network or social welfare system that takes care of the elderly, which also has pros and cons. Okay. So, Wikipedia also mentions that the tiger cubs stay with the mother for about 2 years and then they become independent and leave their mother's range to establish their own territory. So striving for independence. Not living with the parents until 40, which is also not uncommon, I hear, but trying to earn a living on our own and becoming independent eventually. And typically also, at one point, establishing one's own family when the time is ripe. At the same time, we also don't want to push our children towards making these important steps too early. You have to be ready for that as well. And if you do it too early, there might be other shortcomings in their parenting skill. So it is good also to let each other develop in a natural way. But then when the person feels ready, and most people, don't worry, your children eventually will also most likely make their own family, establish themselves. It's just human nature. So for some it takes a bit longer, for some less long, but eventually most people will settle somewhere. So establishing a family in the Dhamma domain, this also means maybe establishing a Dhamma circle. Just like the young tiger cubs, when they grow old, they make their own family. When we were young in the Dhamma, we depended on our teachers. But then later, you might also develop your own small Dhamma groups for having Dhamma discussions or for practicing together. So not practicing only when surrounded by others, but also establishing one's own circle of Dhamma friends. And for monks, there's even a period of 5 years where a monk, a newly ordained monk, lives in dependency on his teacher. So these 5 years are meant as a training where a newly ordained monk will live with his teacher and with a community and learn how to wear the robes, how to conduct oneself as a monk, the monk's rules, about the Dhamma, about meditation. And only after 5 years, if he has done his homework, then he is released from dependence and can live on his own. Maybe even go in a cave or a very secluded place. Doesn't have to live with others anymore. So this aspect of training, guidance is also very central to the Buddha's teaching and even to our monastic tradition. It's also mentioned that, and this is not so uplifting, that since the early 20th century, the tiger populations have lost at least 93% 93% of their range and have been extirpated from Western and Central Asia, also from Java and Bali, and large areas of Southeast and South Asia and China. So these were their normal habitats, and 93% are gone. So just in the last 100 plus years, 93% have been extinguished. In the past, tigers were a very common sight, and occasionally even a threat to forest monks. Monks who live in the forest for meditation, practicing, and monks and tigers used to share the same habitat, living out in the wild. And the Thai tradition in Thailand, there is even an encouragement sometimes where a teacher might send his disciple out into a dangerous place, like a cave or a place where we know there are tigers around, to work and overcome his fear. Nowadays, that's not done so much anymore because there are not many tigers left. But in ancient days, often the Thai monks, the Kuba Ajahns, they would send their disciples to these places and battle their fear. See how you can practice whether your mind is stable or not in this kind of environments. So I have to say that this kind of practice is actually not mentioned in the discourses, in the suttas. There is no encouragement of deliberately seeking out dangerous places. The Buddha seems never to have said that. In fact, once you have become a human being, it's almost like winning the lottery in terms of samsara and rebirth. So now you've become a human being and you have heard the Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings. So that's very valuable, very hard to get. Or maybe even become a monk already. Then you should make good use of that opportunity, and if you have not yet attained liberation, practice diligently for many years, however long it takes, and not cut your lifespan short by putting your life in danger unnecessarily, and then passing away. Who knows what will be your next birth? So there's no encouragement ever in the discourses where the Buddha encourages monks to go into dangerous places. Not necessary. In fact, life provides plenty of opportunity for hardship, for difficulties, for suffering, for dukkha. You don't have to seek it out. It will find you. Okay? But yes, traditionally some monks go into these dangerous places. And just last year, in India, there was one incident where a monk began practicing like that, going deep into a jungle in India, and he was actually killed by a tiger. So, nonetheless, nowadays, almost all tigers are gone from the forests of Thailand. In fact, for monks nowadays, the danger of tigers is smaller than that of the Thai girls. Tigers and Thai girls are not the same. The two words sound almost the same too. And for the holy life of monks in Thailand, the two-legged tigers, the Thai girls, are actually much more dangerous than the four-legged ones. I remember an incident when I was a newly ordained monk in Burma, in Myanmar, and I used to go on daily alms round just by myself. And on the countryside, so you walk through rice paddies, rice fields, and then eventually you reach a house, and you stand outside, and then somebody looks out and they can see you, that they will usually come out with some rice, maybe a curry or some bananas. Very nice. And then you move on to the next house, stand silently. Somebody wishes to come out and offer something, they can. And one time it so happened, again I was going through the rice paddies, approaching a house, and often they have a kind of a area surrounding the house, a backyard. And so I came actually from the back side of the house, not from the front side, because they're coming from the field. And so as I was coming closer, I was approaching the house, and then, since I'm coming from behind, it so happened that just at that time, a woman was taking her bath outside. And actually, she did not wear many clothes, so much I can tell you. And traditionally, how they bathe often is they just take a scoop of water and they have a big container and they just scoop it over their head like that. So I just came around the corner and then this woman was bathing herself. My goodness. I don't know who of us was more embarrassed by saying, but from that moment it became clear to me the importance of sense restraint, especially when going on alms round. So the Buddha always recommends going with the eyes downcast, not looking around in the environment for the monks, and keeping our eyes down and focusing only on your bowl, and when people offer something, receiving the food appreciatively, but not getting into conversations or chit-chatting or looking around in the environment too much. So I understood from personal experience the importance of sense restraint, not scanning the environment too much. And Wikipedia also adds that the major reasons why the population of tigers has declined is, one is habitat destruction, okay? The other one is habitat fragmentation, and also poaching, meaning illegal hunting. So both the environment where the tigers used to live has become deforested. People make use of the trees, of the wood, a lot of logging, illegal logging as well. So that is one reason. But then also the tigers themselves became a commodity, and people were hunting them either for their fur or for their teeth, or even some of their organs. In some places they sell them, and maybe some people expect that they have some special powers. So all kinds of things going on here. So different reasons. So what do you think is the main cause and reason for the tigers dying out and their habitat being destroyed? Obviously, it's us humans that have played a major role here, especially our actions and interference with their habitat. Which of our own qualities do you think is the one that is most responsible for that? It's probably one of the defilements. If we look at lobha, dosa, and moha, greed, hatred, and delusion, which one would you say is the most responsible for that? Could be a bit of a combination, but I think it's mostly lobha, greed, desire for wealth or property, gain. That's why we hunt and why we cut down the forests. We want to have the wood. So it's not because people have hatred towards the tiger that they kill the tiger, but it's more greed towards the resources where the tiger lives, or the tiger himself as a resource. So because of hunting down and also chopping down all the trees, global warming is another side effect of that, and another big issue nowadays. So again, the main reason there seems to be our tendency towards greed and lobha, and not being able to balance that out properly and keep it in check, knowing how much resources can we extract from nature, from our environment, without the environment suffering. So yeah, if every now and then we take out a tree, that's okay, and we plant new ones. But then if you cut out 100 trees and plant just one, well, the balance will not be restored for a long time. So, yeah. So anyway, so I thought about sharing these small similarities between how tigers live, how we humans live. And it's quite interesting, and there's some overlap there. Being Chinese New Year, New Year, at least in the West, is also often a time where we reflect on how we live, we reflect on our life, as a time to look back. How did we spend our time? How did we spend our days? And as the Buddha often says, the days and nights are relentlessly passing. How well am I spending my time? It is a reflection that the Buddha says we should frequently undertake. The days and nights are always passing. How well am I spending my time? So New Year is a good occasion to introspect and check, how am I spending my time? Am I developing? Or am I digressing? Or am I losing my good qualities? And what areas can I develop altogether? In which areas am I doing well? Where am I not doing so well? And there are 5 areas that I have identified where we can check ourselves. Just to take a status quo, where am I? And then maybe see whether one or the other would need some extra degree of cultivation. And not all of these areas are hardcore, only spiritual qualities. It's a combination. Because for you out there in the world, living a life, you will also need different qualities to succeed in your family life, in your private life, in your business endeavors. So a combination of skills and qualities is helpful. Now, one difficulty that sometimes arises is, how do we measure our skill in an area? And in the 19th century, in 1916, one quotient was developed. It's called the IQ, the intelligence quotient, which was a test that was devised in order to find out a person's intelligence. So you solve some puzzles there, and then out comes a number that tells you roughly how well you do in general intelligence. And that test was developed particularly for military purposes, where it was important to identify capable people for military service, highly intelligent people who can solve difficult puzzles on the fly, or literally while flying sometimes even. And when there's some technical issue, coordinating things, and a lot of money is connected with that. So they had a strong incentive to develop these IQ tests and make good use of that. Then also in the business world, it became quite well known and established that some companies will do IQ tests to check their applicants' capabilities in these areas and then find out whether they want to hire them or not. So that's their origin. And I'm not 100% sure to what degree IQ can be practiced or developed. Maybe for some of you, if you can leave some comments on Facebook or YouTube, let me know. I'm not 100% sure whether this is something you can further develop or this is just based on your genetics. But I have heard at some point that you can practice things and your IQ will actually increase. Just not 100% sure the source is reliable or not, but I did hear that one can practice also IQ. However, in order to be really successful in one's private life and business life, only a high IQ alone turned out to be not sufficient. Because a person might be highly intelligent, clever, smart, but very difficult to get along with. Not a team player. And this combination will still prevent that person sometimes from achieving higher stages in his career or to make advancements in private life, because if the personal character or emotional handling is very poor, people don't want to be around that person and will not fare as well as he would just based on his IQ alone. So having identified another area here, and then they started to measure also how can we evaluate that. And one was the emotional quotient, EQ, not IQ, but the EQ, emotional quotient, which measures personal attributes that enable people to succeed in life, as well as the ability to perceive and control and evaluate one's own, but also other people's emotions. And there are some areas of emotional intelligence, you can say, like self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, and empathy, as well as social skills. Maybe just to touch briefly on some of those. Self-awareness means emotional awareness, where you're aware of what is going on in your mind. Or in the Buddhist teachings, we would say citta nupassana, contemplation and awareness of one's mental states. Is there greed or not? Aversion or not? Is the mind concentrated? Is there sadness or fear? So this would be emotional awareness of one's own mind, as well as that of others. But also self-confidence, So being able to assert oneself and also to be confident enough to undertake things that one finds worthwhile undertaking. Then in the self-regulation category comes things like self-control. When something bad happens, is the person exploding, quite literally. A more stoic approach, where Stoicism, as some of you might know, is an ancient Greek philosophy which emphasizes very much on self-regulation, not getting irritated or upset about things that are outside of our control. And I think has a lot of overlap with the Buddha's teachings about equanimity, patient endurance. And even when I was young in my youth, I was always quite inspired by these Stoic ideas, so much so that I practiced and I wanted to be very fast. So when any strong emotion would come up in my mind, I was trying not to let that proliferate. And even when I remember sometimes when we walk somewhere and you crash your toe against the table or against the chair, so painful. Instead of even crying out or shouting something, just silent, and try to be silent and show no reaction. So of course you will still feel the pain, but this is how quick the mind can be, and you can train the mind to be so mindful and alert so that even when something happens, you know to hold back, and you quickly evaluate. Do I want to express my emotion? Sometimes yes, it's okay. But sometimes it might not be the right time. Now, hitting a door is not something serious, but it could be a verbal disagreement with somebody. And then it's important that you know whether you would like to react right now or whether you would like to withhold a little bit your judgment or your response. And let yourself calm down first. So it's a quite important and interesting principle that the Stoics emphasize on. And in Buddhism, we also have this with patient endurance, with khanti. Another aspect of self-regulation is adaptability and flexibility, adapting to our environment, to new situations. Not to be stubborn, always doing the same thing. If something changes, we cannot adapt. No, we adjust, we adapt, go with the flow. And that allows us to thrive in any situation. Even for us as monks, I was often in a situation when I was traveling in Thailand or going on Tudong in Sri Lanka. You stay at different monasteries, different places, or even out in the open. Sometimes you end up at a very nice place, beautiful environment, and sometimes it's really dirty and filthy. And being able to adapt and be flexible, not make a big thing out of things, is very helpful, very important to maintain well-being. Also self-motivation, taking initiative to do something, and also a sense of optimism that you can achieve something. So this is also important for doing something, wanting to fulfill one's own goals and aspiration, especially on the spiritual path, on the path towards awakening. You need initiative, but also a sense of, I can do this, I can progress, I can be mindful. Maybe not for 3 hours in one go, but maybe for 2 minutes. It's a starting point. Then maybe if you can do 2 minutes, with some practice, you can probably also do 3 minutes, 5 minutes, half an hour. And gradually, you can expand that further and further. So a sense of optimism that, yes, we can train and practice and develop. And then the last aspect here, or another one, was empathy. Not only understanding our own feelings, but also the feelings and emotions of others. And also communicating that. Being of service to others. Empathy not only in the heart, but also expressed by deeds and words. And then the last aspect of emotional skill is the category of social skills, which include things like communication, conflict management, or leadership skills. Nowadays you hear a lot about leadership skills. Everywhere, every company, they send their people for leadership training. But how about team capability? I think this is just equally important, because if everybody wants to be a leader, who will be led? So we need both. In some environments, in some situations, you might play the leadership role. In others, it's required to follow and to adjust and to let somebody else take the lead. So both is important. Team capability. So this all comes under emotional maturity and emotional quotient, about the EQ. So IQ and EQ are both important. But then, if you want to have a long and happy life, it's also helpful if the body is healthy. So you could also think about a health quotient, an HQ, which health and physical fitness, to some degree, is also supportive for well-being and for our spiritual practice. You could take a test. Nowadays you can go probably to a hospital or a clinic where they assess exactly your level of fitness, your heart condition, your lungs, and so on, strength tests. And then if it turns out that there's some weakness, you might want to compensate that and do some light exercise, cardio, or also for the muscles and sinews and bones. So assessing your own health can be important, and at times to counteract and to exercise will help to also maintain good physical health also until old age. That is the third area. Fourth area, I don't think that exists out in the world, but you can think about an MQ, a morality quotient. Morality quotient. What's that? Well, you can assess your level of virtue. How well am I able to maintain, in your case, the 5 precepts? To abstain from killing, even insects, mosquitoes, ants, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, or intoxicants. How fit am I in this area? How able and for how long can I maintain these precepts? And if you see some weakness there, you might try to compensate and try to train yourself to, in future, find ways to maintain them for longer and better, more continuously. So morality, ethical standards, are very important in our life, both for ourselves, but also for those with whom we live, who depend on us, and who want to be able to trust us, to trust our word, and to feel safe. So our moral standards, our ethical standards are very helpful in relationships, on the workplace, and everywhere. And lastly, you can think about an SQ. Nothing to do with the military. SQ is the spiritual quotient. You can try to assess what's your level of lobha, dosa, and moha, greed, hatred, and delusion, or their positive counterparts, like non-greed, or generosity, non-hatred, loving-kindness, non-delusion, wisdom. So this would be another area to introspect and see, oh, maybe I have a weakness in one or the other area. Or my spiritual faculties, faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom, are they highly developed? Or maybe they're a bit lacking, some of them. And then to cultivate those that are not so strongly developed. So I find these 5 areas very important to take a whole picture of how one is doing, and then assess and then emphasize those that are weakly developed and develop them further, and those that are already well developed. One can still continue developing them further, but emphasizing also on those that one naturally maybe has neglected a little bit. So what are the 5 areas? Let us summarize. The first one was IQ, intelligence quotient. Second one was the EQ, emotional quotient. Third one was, what was the third one? HQ, health quotient, physical health. Next one, number 4, MQ, the morality quotient, about virtue. And lastly, the SQ, our spiritual quotient, the level of greed, hatred, and delusion, or their counterparts. So all these factors can and should be developed, and not to be imbalanced, just practicing one out of the 5 and neglecting the others. So a holistic approach is helpful, just like in physical exercise. You don't exercise just one arm or one leg, right? We exercise both sides of the body. Likewise, if you develop all these 5 areas together, the life will become fulfilled and holistic and well balanced. So I would like to encourage to identify which of these areas do you think, for you personally, might be a bit underdeveloped. Maybe it's health, maybe it's your moral standards, maybe you didn't pay much attention to the spiritual side of yourself. And then make a determination to put in regular effort towards its development on a daily basis, maybe just 15-20 minutes. So, which one did you identify as being in need of more training? You will know. Okay. I think it's getting time to come to an end of our Chinese New Year session this morning. And don't forget, you always have a choice of either being a fierce mullah who, or a timid Dhamma mouse, or maybe a Lao Tzu, or a loving and caring and compassionate Dhamma-Tiger, a Dhamma Lao Hu. So which one do you prefer? It's up to you. I wish you much happiness, success, health, and also spiritual wealth. And most importantly, complete freedom from suffering and the attainment of Nibbana. Let us close this session by sharing the merit among all of us who are present here today, as well as with our departed relatives and friends. Let us recite together. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang no nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang vo nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Ettavata ca amhehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. And lastly, let us also make an aspiration so that the good karma that we have accumulated will also support us on the path to liberation, towards Nibbana. Please repeat after me. Idang me punyang asavakkaya vahang hotu. Idang me punyang nibbanassa vaccayo hotu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
And now we would like to acknowledge the teaching given by Ayasma Ariyadhammika. Please put your palms together and repeat after me. Handamayang Dhammakataya Sadhukarang dadamase. Now, let us express our approval of this Dhamma teaching. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu anumodami. Arahang sama sambuddho bhagava buddhang bhagavantam abhivademi. Swakato bhagavata dhammo dhammang namasami. Supatipano bhagavato sāvaka sangho sanghang namami. On behalf of Penang Bodhihat Sanctuary, we would like to extend our gratitude to Ayasma Ariyadhammika for spending this time with us to share this excellent Dhamma talk with us. And to all of you, brothers and sisters of the Dhamma, I hope all of you have benefited from this Dhamma teaching. And may all of you keep well, stay safe, and be healthy always. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.